Hey, it's Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. So last month in February, we did a video about a potential landlord cartel, which was using an algorithm to set rents and whether or not that was an antitrust violation. So I'm going to put it's not proved yet, but we're going to put the cartel quote, air quotes around that. And there's been some recent developments, including today, where the FTC and the Department of Justice has issued a new statement on this controversy. Plus, in Arizona, the state of Arizona, the Arizona Attorney General has joined the cause, so to speak, to file an antitrust suit against these landlords. And she does a really good job of explaining the situation in plain language. So let's cut to her press conference from earlier this week. This is the Attorney General from Arizona. Let's cut to the news story here.
We're actually talking about the algorithm and how much money it was going to make them to their investors.
Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays blaming RealPage and 9 landlord companies for the astronomical surge.
Now, RealPage is the company that we talked about in the story from early November. We'll link that video that I did from early February, rather. We'll link it here somewhere.
In rent prices over the last 7 years.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that people were made homeless by this scheme.
All right, so that's a little dramatic, but, that's what lawyers and politicians say.
Says since 2016, more than a third of Phoenix renters saw their rent increase 76%, and about a third of Tucson renters saw a 30% price hike.
So what I think they're saying here is that if a bunch of landlords subscribe to a service, and what you basically do is you take all your rent roll information, the number of apartments you have, where they are, how much you're charging, how many are vacant, and you share that with the service, and multiple other landlords share that with the service. You pay a subscription fee, and the service, the algorithm, processes that information and then sends you back a recommendation as to what you should charge for the apartment. Now, even if you don't take the recommendation exactly, that's effectively collusion. Think about, let's just say you took your let's go back 30 years and you didn't have any of this computerized. It was just in a 3-ring binder. Let's say you dropped the 3-ring binder off at some guy named Dave. Dave at his office. You dropped the 3-ring binder over at Dave's office. And every other landlord or a bunch of other landlords in that town also dropped their binder at Dave's office. And then a week later, because everything was paper back then and old-fashioned, Dave wrote you a letter, not an email, wrote you a letter, a memo, telling you what you should charge for your outstanding apartments that are gone unrented. Would that be collusion? Yes, it would be, through Dave. Like, has anyone ever seen a spy movie where they have somebody else do the dirty work? Somebody who's kind of clueless, like it's a cutout. It's called a cutout, right? Or they do this in the mob all the time. It's a cutout, right? And especially for the drop of the payoff money or the spy information, right? It's a clear situation where Dave is basically doing the colluding for the partners, and they're trying to keep some plausible denial. But that's not really true. That's collusion, even if Dave is now basically an algorithm. Okay, let's go back to the story here from Arizona.
This happened in large part, we believe, because of this conspiracy that stifled fair competition and essentially established a rental monopoly in our state's 2 largest metro areas.
The suit alleges landlords...
Full disclosure, my son actually lives in Arizona now, but he hasn't lived there that long. But yeah, he lives in Arizona now, which is really nice this time of year.
Are working with RealPage, a management revenue software company accused of collecting leasing data to create a price-fixing conspiracy.
RealPage then directed the competitors who entered this conspiracy on which units to rent, when to rent them, and at what price. This was not a fair market at work. It was a fixed market that harmed renters while driving up the profit margins for this housing cartel.
She says this led to Arizona renters paying hundreds of millions of dollars in extra rent, affecting hundreds of thousands of families.
A lot of people live.
All right, so she's then going to go to the tearjerker story there. But you heard it. There's a lot of money at stake here. And, some of you might know that I don't tend to necessarily agree with the Attorney General from Arizona's worldview on things. I'm sure we disagree on a lot of things, but you got to call it as it is. And antitrust violation is an antitrust violation. That's collusion. It's collusion. She did a really good job at describing it. So we have some U.S. senators getting into the act. Senator Klobuchar colleagues introduced antitrust legislation to prevent algorithmic price fixing. Could they come up with something that would be easier for me to pronounce? Price fixing is illegal under our antitrust laws, but the development of an automated price setting algorithms can create loopholes in current law that can be used to unfairly raise prices on everything from rent to ride shares. And what I am really concerned about is kind of like a price spiral situation. So in the one situation where you bring all your data to the algorithm and it spits out a price, right? And so you take that price recommendation, then the algorithm then at some point, whatever increment, 1 day, 1 week, a month, it's going to collect the information again. And that information that it collects again is going to be the higher price, theoretically, that it recommended the first time. Because a lot of these services promote that they're going to make the landlords more money. They're not promoting the service by saying, hey, we're going to cut prices. No, hell no. They're saying that we're going to promote and allow you to make more money. That's the value added for this service. In other words, by definition, we're going to raise up the rents as much as the market will allow. But that can become a feedback loop, right? So if you do it once, that's one thing, but then you have to feed that information back into the algorithm, and it becomes, what's the phrase? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. So thank you, Sharon. Great to have you with you today. Glad they got caught. Well, yeah, to be fair, they haven't gotten caught yet. It's still going to be a legal case, but yes, they're going to have to defend themselves. Great question. And thank you so much for your comment. Good to see you again. Thank you, Sharon. So let's go to the FTC statement on this matter today. Price fixing by algorithm is still price fixing. This is from the FTC business blog from today, March 1st. Landlords and property owners, managers can't collude on rental pricing. We all know that. Using new technology to do it doesn't change the antitrust fundamental, regardless of the industry you're in. In other words, they're also kind of blanket statement, for a lot of different industries. If your business uses an algorithm to determine prices, a brief by the FTC and the Department of Justice offers helpful guideline for antitrust compliance. And let's be clear, if you use an algorithm in-house where you're looking at your rental data, that's fine. In fact, if you're observationally looking at what's going on in the marketplace and how much other people are charging, that is also fine. What crosses the line is when you basically subscribe to a service, you send them all your data, a bunch of other people. Well, you heard me talk about it earlier. So using an algorithm in and of itself is not a problem. It's when a group of people are using it to set prices. So just to make an important distinction, today the FTC and the Department of Justice took action to fight algorithmic collusion. That's a good way to say it. Algorithmic collusion in the residential housing market. So it's interesting. They filed a legal brief of which they do not link to for whatever reason, and I couldn't find it. But the agency filed a joint legal brief explaining that price fixing through an algorithm is still price fixing. We'll cover the brief highlights. 1, you can't use an algorithm to evade the law banning price-fixing agreements. And 2, or as my wife would say, B, an agreement to use shared pricing recommendations, lists, calculations, or algorithms can be still unlawful even when co-conspirators retain some pricing discretion or cheat on the agreement. So effectively what they're saying, if I'm going to paraphrase something later written in this memo, if you're a bad conspirator, if you stink at conspiracy, as long as you try to be a conspirator, you're still a conspirator. So, yeah. So if you conspired, but you kind of like tried to beat your, if you were like a frenemy with your competitors, what's the phrase? What's the there is an equivalent of frenemy for competitor, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there is. There definitely is. And if you stunk at being a conspirator, it still meant you were a conspirator. You're just a stinky conspirator, right? So that's what the FTC and the Department of Justice is basically saying in their joint legal brief. And for whatever reason, beyond me, that they didn't link to it in this statement here today, nor can it reasonably obtained on the internet. The agency's work in this space is especially important given the rising residential housing prices. Remember I talked about in regards to the whole antitrust thing with the National Association, how it can be so politically popular to come along and say, yeah, NAR is colluding, right? There's a lot of political mileage in 2024, which is an election year, on this type of topic, especially and basically the DOJ and the FTC is admitting here that we're kind of playing up to the public opinion. Rent is up 20% since 2020, with the largest increase in concentrated lower middle class. Okay, so they're playing to their meanwhile, landlords increasingly use algorithms to determine their prices, which in and of itself isn't the problem. I think they should, again, stick to the phrase algorithmic collusion is the problem, using software like Rent Maximizer. And once again, I have no problem with any business that wants to maximize profits. I love it when you I want to maximize profits for my business, and you should want to maximize profits for your business, but we can't collude when we're doing that. So greed is good, right? Right. Where's Gordon Gekko when you need him, right? But there's nothing wrong with maximizing your rent as long as you're not colluding to do it with other landlords. All right, so I'm going to put the link in the FTC to the FTC memo in this description, and I want to just bring you up to date on this important topic. You'll notice that the National Association of Realtors is not commenting on this topic, right? Aren't they supposed to be sticking up for affordable housing? Aren't they supposed to be doing that? Where is their voice when it comes to talking about collusion in the real estate market? Shouldn't they be a big leader in this topic? They're being accused. Actually, they're not even being accused. They've been found guilty of collusion. So I guess maybe they're not going to comment on this particular story. All right. So I've had a great time with you today. It is Friday, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Go make some money. Go maximize your profits. Just don't collude with anybody else to do it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.